Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call our Racial Equity Committee to order at 11 a.m. Madam Clerk, would you call roll to establish quorum?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Vice Mayor Talamantes.
Sir.
Councilmember Guerra is running late, but will be here shortly. Councilmember Jennings.
Here.
And Chair Vang.
Here. Vice Mayor Talamantes, would you help lead us in the land acknowledgement? And Coach Jennings, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please rise for the opening acknowledgments in honor of Sacramento's indigenous people and tribal lands. To the original people of this land, the Nisenan people, the Southern Maidu, Valley and Plains Miwok, Patwin Wintun peoples, and the people of the Wilton Rancheria, Sacramento's only federally recognized tribe. May we acknowledge and honor Native people who came before us and still walk beside us today on these ancestral lands by choosing to gather together today in the active practice of acknowledgement and appreciation for Sacramento's indigenous peoples' history, contributions, and lives. Thank you.
I pledge of allegiance. Would you remain standing, please? If you're able. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Someday.
Thank you so much. Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to our first Racial Equity Committee meeting of 2026. We have one item on consent. Madam Clerk, do you have any comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. No, we do not.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Second.
Moved by Talamantes, second by Jennings. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Vice Mayor Talamantes.
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra. Councilmember Jennings.
Yes.
Chair Vang.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you so much. Next, do we have any open public comments?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Can I still please have Lambert come up for item 2? Wait.
This is items not on the agenda.
I'm sorry. No, for the minutes.
Oh, there is someone for the minutes.
Oh,
Is there
sorry.
comments for the minutes?
No, I have one for.
Okay, yeah, if there's no comments on nothing on the items, we'll move to the next item. I apologize. Okay, no worries. Okay, so we will move to discussion calendar, update on the Sacramento Center on Racial Equity, the SCORE initiative presented by, I guess we'll have both. Yeah. Please, okay.
Sacramento Racial Equity Committee. My name is Nia Moreweathers. I'm a representative of the Sacramento Racial Equity Alliance and also a proud member of the Sacramento Kids First Coalition, in addition to being the Racial Equity Manager of Policy at Youth Forward local nonprofit. So where are we in the SCORE work plan? At the moment in our process, and since the passage of the Racial Equity Resolution, our focus at the Sacramento Racial Equity Alliance has shifted from building the framework to putting racial equity into practice, and the vehicle for that is the SCORE work plan. The idea is that we make this resolution real through concrete goals, timelines, and accountability. And so up until this date, work that we have completed going back to the beginning of October, on October 9th, 2025, the Racial Equity Alliance submitted the recommended changes and questions that we had for the SCORE work plan to the city. And by mid-November 17th, 2025, the Racial Equity Alliance had met with the Office of Diversity and Equity to align on the purpose and function of the SCORE work plan. Going into December, the Racial Equity Alliance met again with the Office of Diversity and Equity to walk through the recommended edits and provide guidance as the Office of Diversity and Equity moved forward with the revisions that we had. And following that meeting, ODE returned an updated version of that plan that still required refinement. And currently, we've reviewed and updated that work plan. We've provided additional edits to strengthen clarity, accountability, and alignment with the intent of the resolution. And at current, we plan to have a working meeting on Thursday, February 5th to revise and review these revisions made in response to ODE's feedback and to ensure that the plan is ready for broader engagement. We also want to emphasize that community engagement is central to this process for us. And from the beginning, our racial equity policy work has been grounded in community leadership and shared ownership. And we are intentionally designing this process so community can be engaged at every step, so nobody feels left out, and so that our work plan reflects real buy-in, not just compliance. And so to help support community engagement on Tuesday, February 24th from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., the Racial Equity Alliance will be convening community leaders to review the SCORE work plan and to provide feedback before it continues to move forward. And our goal is that by March 3rd, 2026, the city has a solid shared SCORE work plan with those clear goals, defined action items, and a roadmap for implementation and accountability. And that date, March 3rd, represents a transition point for us, right? So we're going to be moving out of the planning phase and into the execution phase, which for those of us who are in the room, I'm very excited about. It's been a long kind of build up to this. So why all of this matters and why it's important. The city and the community invested significant time and energy into building this racial equity resolution, right? This did not come for free. This came at a cost of our time, our sweat, our tears, our funding, right, to build this. And now it's the moment to operationalize it, turning our values into action. The intention is that by the end of 2026, Sacramento is moving at full speed on racial equity with systems, processes, and accountability structures actively in place. And the Racial Equity Alliance will remain committed to partnering with the city to keep this work moving forward in a transparent, inclusive, and results-driven way. The focus is not just on having a plan, but in ensuring that the plan works, is trusted, and delivers meaningful change for all of our marginalized community members living here in our Sacramento community. Thank you so much, y'all. I'm happy to answer any questions and or to hand the mic over to Ami.
Thank you so much, Nia. Why don't we have Ami present, and then we'll open it up for any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nia, and the Racial Equity Alliance. Good morning and Happy New Year, all. Ami Zenzele Barnes. I serve as the Diversity and Equity Manager of the Office of Diversity and Equity, which is located in Human Resources. I was glad to see a lot of alignment. I will actually move very quickly through this very short presentation because it covered many of the same points. Because we want to make sure that we are sharing the work publicly and that you all, as the Racial Equity Committee, know some of the key consultations and meetings and actions that have happened. So moving from recommendations to action, this is part of the journey to implement the resolution that was passed in December 3rd of 2024, which is operationalizing racial equity. And so this presentation is just really to give some brief overview of the consultation and collaboration that continues to shape the SCORE work plan. As mentioned, city leadership, members of the Racial Equity Alliance, Racial Equity Committee co-facilitated 9 trio spaces in 2025. Thought that was important not only to lift up how many times, but the prep, the deep consultation that happens prior. Those meetings are co-facilitated by each partner to build relationship and deepen our understanding with one another as we move in this co-governance strategy. We also, our team, really want to thank Larissa Wall, our strategic workforce equity analyst, and Armando Herrera, our equity analyst, for preparing and meeting with the Racial Equity Alliance that we did in the fall for deeper consultation and relationship building. Those meetings were just not an hour. They were anywhere from 3 to 4 hours where we co-facilitated shared skills building. We talked about visions and aspirations, the dynamics that both partners face. So it was a really great way to develop relationship, but also deeply understand the capacity and how we are moving at a human affirming pace that deeply roots in community. And that is part of our goal with the SCORE work plan, which is to do things differently and be curious about how we can do that moving forward. And also to meet and discuss the Racial Equity Alliance recommendations that were provided to us in October of 2025. Interesting, we also had why this work matters. We want to address present inequities and some of the top priorities that the council, not only the Racial Equity Committee, has identified in terms of housing and homelessness, wealth, and access to services. We want the resolution to really become a driving force for systemic change. And we want the work plan to be a kind of our cultural roadmap of transformation, holding all partners accountable. The starting point, we developed the work plan approximately, I think it was over this time last year. The vision is to move from compliance to commitment and from individual intent to collective accountability. I think that's a great way of describing co-governance, where we share in each of those endeavors. And of course, the guiding principle, as our careholders from the Alliance mentioned, that equity is both a process and it is in the outcome. The consultation journey thus far, partnerships that are engaged, also as a way to acknowledge and say thank you to the Racial Equity Committee and for y'all's leadership. District 8, Racial Equity Alliance, the Racial Equity Committee, the community careholders, and of course, city leadership and staff who engage in the monthly TRIO meetings and meetings that support that work. The how of it has been the meetings with Racial Equity Alliance and the Office of Diversity and Equity. As I mentioned, those were multi-hour, really deep conversations on November 17th and December 12th to also explore the recommendations received. We also really wanted to build understanding, shared understanding around the why, which is to ensure that the edits and the input and the SCORE work plan is rooted in the lived experiences of community and balanced with practical implementation, tactical and practical. So what we heard thus far, and we're continuing to hear more from our Alliance careholders as well, is shifting language from urgency to sustained commitment, embedding accountability and transparency. So this is looking at the work in the city currently as equity strategies, also the community and accountability report as more integral into the process, also breaking down silos and centering the human experience. So those were some things that we heard in our conversations. What we continue to hear as well, in the most recent feedback that we received over the weekend with the deep work that the Alliance did in looking further into the work plan for refinement as we continue to engage and exchange insights and questions and curiosities, is aligning the timelines with capacity and resources. We did hear that in the fall and moving into the fall of last year, that the pace is something that we really do need to be mindful of, not only just for our Alliance careholders, but for us as a city as well, right? So reframing levels of inequities as well, and that's looking at what equities can we tackle first, what is most meaningful, but what is most realistic, and what can engender a sustained commitment, knowing that developing a citywide racial equity action plan is a multi-year process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And then it's also clarifying equity and the resolution adoption and moving that forward as well. So that's some recent great feedback that we heard from the Alliance. How we respond is we continue to question and add cultural shift to our language. You will notice that when you see the document into the introduction, and using terms like marginalization versus underrepresented, looking at when we mean systemic change, what does that mean? So really being very, having a, a certain language discipline in our work as well. Integrating the resolution more into the commitment in shaping the goals as a tactical strategy. What was named in the resolution is something that we want to bring in further. Reimagining the timeline has been reimagined from 2025 to 2026. Now it's starting 2026, 2027 for that phase 1, and you will see that more as well. And that's also to embed iterative capacity as things change for not only us as a city and leadership, but also for the Racial Equity Alliance. And continuing the relationship building and community leaders review. So we adjusted the timeline from 2026. This is just a brief overview. It could also continue to shift as we continue to have conversations. It's still a phased strategy of the first 2 years being around foundational partnership structures, equity, the draft citywide racial equity plan to get us to that to the end of 2027. Phase 2 is the institutionalization piece, which is linking it to the already existing department equity plans that the Office of Diversity and Equity is developing with our departments. Dashboards and training. Training has to be very integral to this as well. And then the phase 3 is looking at 2029 and beyond around sustainability and how these how this information is embedded, not only as tools and instruments, but how it is shaped in our planning, our budget spending, all of that good stuff. So the next steps really want to highlight is to continue the city-community consultation on the key questions and strategies. I could see us reaching out to you all to get your feedback and see where you think things are going as well. I think the more consultation we have in developing and finalizing the work plan, the more ownership and the more shared understanding for us to move in a co-governance way, but also in a sustained and in a positive relationship way. Document and integrate the feedback from the community leaders review scheduled on February 24th, 2026. The Office of Diversity and Equity will support whatever strategies for that and how we can help and be part of that. We would love to be part of that, to hear and listen and learn from our community leaders as well. I think it would be a great experience. So we'll definitely be working with the Alliance on that. Bring the city community review and reconciliation of feedback. I really want to kind of highlight here, it's going to be really important that as we get the feedback from the community leaders review, that we are engaging all elements of our partnership. So that means city leadership from the city manager's office to the racial equity committee, our office, any other city care holders that would be important to do that, as well as the Racial Equity Alliance as well. So we might need to, I think we'll definitely need to talk about what that review and how we reconcile that, the feedback, to make the document be as sound and as possible and imaginary as possible. Present the feedback and recommendations. It will come back to the Racial Equity Committee. We will begin, and then the implementation of the work plan, which is a very exciting phase. I do want to highlight, and it would be great to get direction from the Racial Equity Committee around what that February 24th to March 3rd timeline looks like, and is there enough time for that reconciliation and that feedback and consultation. And I think this is also a beautiful opportunity to involve city leadership, and particularly our new city manager, Markeisha Smith, as well, for insights, right? This is that part of it. So it may not be enough time, it may need to be the following one, but that's something I would love to get feedback and talk with the Alliance about as well. So here's some outstanding questions that we'll be going into as we continue this conversation. Is we want to, and these were things as we're continuing to exchange documents and make comments, you know, understanding, again, that language discipline, cross-sectional versus intersectional for reporting, the integration of the resolution language, and how do we do that, involving our departments as well. Departments are going to be, they're key care holders in this, and so I'm really excited about springboarding the work of the Office of Diversity and Equity into SCORE and how we can make this one huge comprehensive plan, work, effort that we're all moving in the same way. Feedback on the timeline and feasibility of phase 1, given the lessons learned. Is that realistic? It seems like a long time, but we're already into February 2026, right? So how do we move forward in the co-governance approach and strategy? And so there'll be more conversations about that as well, but that's a huge question that is before us. Outstanding questions for city leadership. Does support of this work require of an ordinance? Is that necessary at the beginning? That's something that we heard from our Racial Equity Alliance care holders, is that they would like to see that. I know there's a lot of direction and implications there, so that's a huge question that all the partners need to come around the table and decide as to where that is and how do we gain agreement around that. And if so, where does the racial equity study also fit into the timeline as well? Because that's a huge work product as well, and we want to have things seamlessly work and not take away energy from the implementation. So balancing that is going to be really important. The co-governance alignment. What is the representative team that supports this work? The work plan currently calls for an implementation team. I think we may need to talk about that a little sooner than later as to who that looks like, that supports and can be sustained given current capacity of both the Alliance and city leadership. What does that team look like? So we're really moving and making sure that we have seamless communication with all partners. That's a really something I think we all need to work on as well. And how do we design meetings to sustain communication and work efforts, both internal and then also city and with the Racial Equity Alliance? Community relations and engagement, integrate the recommendations from the community partnership strategy report and, of course, the community leader review session that is happening next month. And thank you for your time and attention. There'll be, I'm sure, some more questions, but look forward to your feedback and your thoughts, and yeah, look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ami. Should we take public comment? Is there any public comments first? Let's take public comments, and then I have Assistant City Manager Milstein in the queue, so, and I have questions too, so.
Thank you, Chair. Can I have Lambert please come forward for item 2?
Hi, Mr. Lambert.
Now, the reason I came is because every time I hear about race equity at Sacramento City Hall, it's always, now these two people who just spoke, they are very sincere about what they're doing. But and I'm on record as saying, there's resistance to DEI at City Hall. It's been well documented. And now that Donald Trump is in there, what you're talking about, if it takes forever to get to wherever you want to get to, it's going to be more difficult now. I mean, he's firing people and abolishing DEI as we speak. So I live in reality. I don't, no pipe dreams here. And if you want something to really study, I personally attended the new city manager's press conference. This is what I mean by institutionalized and systemic. And some lady gave me a piece of paper and it said term sheet for the new city manager. The race committee, you should study this. It said on the term sheet, 0 cause for termination. I've never heard of that. 0 cause for termination. And across the line, make sure you pay attention. Right across the line, it said, City Hall could terminate her and only have to pay her 9 months' salary, which means her family would miss out on that 3 years that I read about. And to me, there's people capable of organizing to do that. This year, I hope what's happening over at the state comes to this city. I want to see a federal audit come and find out why the city I love and was raised in is continuously in a structural deficit. That's going to be the scandal.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank
Chair,
you,
we
Ms.
have no more.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Lainey.
Thank you. I just, first I want to thank the REA, the REC, AMI, and staff for all of their work on this. I think the changes are really exciting, that reflecting of, kind of new language around accountability and action and commitment. The only thing that, because I told AMI today, I worry from 0 to, worry in about 5 seconds, is I just want to be clear that we may have work to do after the 24th, and I don't want to preclude the continued coordination and collaboration on that. And so we may be back to the committee on the 3rd with an update, or we may be back with a final, because we don't know what it is yet that we're going to get on the 24th. So just open to that. I just don't want to set any, preconceived expectations of something actually happening on the 3rd. So that, but I appreciate it and thank you, and just giving us grace to continue to be flexible on that.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Assistant City Manager. I do have some questions, mainly questions for clarity, just so that the public and my colleagues can understand the work as well. So if Nia and Ami can just both come up. First, I want to take this moment to say thank you to the Alliance and city staff. I mean, you have done a lot of incredible work to get us to this moment, and I know that, I've been chairing the Racial Equity Committee for a while now. We have discussed about moving at the speed of trust, and it fills my heart knowing that there is a lot of back and forth and deep consultation happening, and so I think that's really important as we continue to do this work, and so thank you so much for modeling that. I know that we are in the midst of implementing the resolution that the community wrote, and so that's really exciting. And I know in the fall, we had, again, like I shared, deep consultation between ODE staff, between members of the Alliance, and also my staff as well in those trio meetings. Just wanted to ask a question for clarity in particular. I think I know the answer, but I want to make sure that my colleagues and the public is aware. In the resolution, it states, the resolution that the community wrote states that the action plan would be presented to City Council in 2026, which is what we, held ourselves accountable to. But when I look at the SCORE work plan, and I understand that it is a roadmap in terms of how we're going to do this work, the draft report says that the citywide racial equity action plan will be presented to council at the end of 2027. And so my question for you, and just to make sure that there's clarity, because I do think that's really important to distinguish what is the difference between the two. And if the racial equity action plan will not be presented and done until 2027, that means that the resolution we pass, we may need to update that, right? And so if you can provide clarity on the SCORE work plan and how that actually leads to the racial equity action plan, that's important, because I think there are confusion around that. And I want that to be very clear. So I don't know if you could, maybe I just stated it already, but like if you could reaffirm that, because because I have had community members saying, hey, you voted for this resolution.
Yes.
It says that you would bring back forth a racial equity plan in 2026. We're in 2026 right now, and you're telling me that we're not bringing this back until 2027. But there's this other thing, the SCORE work plan, and so if you can talk a little bit about the difference, because I think that's important for us to articulate to the public and our community who will hold us accountable to the resolution that we passed that was created by the community.
Right, absolutely. No, it's a good question. And in fact, that was the focus of our meeting on coming together on November 17th, because I think there was confusion. You stated it and described it very, very well. It is an intended roadmap of accountability for us as partners to move and develop the citywide racial equity action plan. The citywide, so it's the roadmap, it's the work that's doing, it's documenting also what actions, strategies, lessons learned, but also holding us accountable around monitoring and reporting as we get to the ultimate goal called for by the resolution, the citywide racial equity action plan. The SCORE work plan is not the citywide racial equity action plan, not at all. It is, when you think about it, it really is about the tactical, and that's what I really appreciate about the recent additions from the Alliance, is that there's a lot of strategy and tactics that are being named to get us to that. So it is a document that, or a plan of work. It's like a project management tool. It's a roadmap that can be for the public. It could also be used to focus our energies, be accountable in our transparency around reporting to the Racial Equity Committee, to the goal of the citywide Racial Equity Action Plan. So it's going to morph, it's going to change. I absolutely imagine that SCORE work plan would look completely different in 2 years. Because it will have additions, it will have strategies, it might have different partners, it will help us understand dynamics that we're facing as a city, that our community is facing. So it really was meant to just help us forge our internal strategy to get to the citywide racial equity action plan.
Yeah, and if it's helpful
Yeah.
at all, particularly for folks in our public who are listening who are unfamiliar with how local government works, I would say that when we're talking about policy is just a collection of ideas, right? So when we say racial equity policy, we are talking about this generally. It's the same way you want to think about the citywide racial equity work plan, right? This is the larger general plan that the city will take, whereas the SCORE work plan is a very specific contract that the ODE, TRIO, and the Racial Equity Alliance is designing to ensure that we have success for that longer, wider, and more objective goal that we have of establishing racial equity in our city. So if you're online right now and you're listening, that's an easier, simpler way to break it down. Citywide racial equity plan, big. SCORE work plan, small.
Yeah, and then I would also bring up the important aspect of the resolution, and we talked about this a little bit, I think, during the summer, when the concern was brought up around pace and timing, and how long things would take, and what could realistically be done. And so I think there was a different strategies that were offered around changing some of the language of the resolution, so we're accountable. And that's something that we would talk with Assistant City Manager Laney and City Attorney's Office as to what's the best, so that we have the most flexibility in that resolution as well. But yes, that conversation did come up in the summer around, we're not going to make 2026. It's not realistic at this time. So what is the impact? And I think that was actually brought up by the Alliance first, the language around the resolution. But I think that strategy, once we kind of have the
Work plan?
work plan, I think then we'll be able to make any course corrections or shape of the resolution in a way that is meaningful.
Can I make a direction and a request that when the SCORE work plan comes to the Racial Equity Committee on March 3rd, which we don't know if will be completed, but I do think that there needs to be an update on March 3rd, that in parallel, that we bring back that resolution as well to have a conversation about what those potential edits may look like. I think that's really important, because I want to hold mayor and council to the resolution, and if those changes needs to be made, I think in parallel, we could attach that and discuss the ways in which it may need to be re-edited, because I want to hold ourselves accountable to that, and I think that's really important, because the community worked really hard on that. And so that would be my direction, is to also bring the resolution back with the work plan to make sure that it's in alignment, because if it's not in alignment, that's not good either. I want to make sure. I don't know if you have.
I think we started this conversation, as Ami had mentioned, in the summer, and we still haven't reconciled as a group. Is it language that just offers flexibility without a date certain, or is it a date certain to ensure accountability? And I still think we need to finish that conversation, but I think we can certainly do that and come forward with a recommendation in March.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay. I would appreciate, I think that would be really great. The other piece is something that I just want to recommend moving forward for these presentations, is that I love the oral presentation, but I know some folks are visual learners. And I also want to make a recommendation for the staff report as well, because there has been a lot of great work done. And hoping that, in the staff report, Ami and Larissa, that we can actually add dates of when the TRIO meetings happened, when those consultation with the Alliance happened, what were the items that came out of those meetings, so that we can have, I know that y'all are doing that work internally, but I think that would be really important, so that members of the committee can see and kind of monitor, because our job, because obviously as a Racial Equity Committee, is to also hold this entire community holds this work as well, but as elected, we hold this work, and I think it's just important so that we could see, like, the TRIO meetings happen. What were the outcomes that came from the TRIO meetings, or the deep consultation? What were some of the main outcomes? If that can be put in the staff report, I think that's really important, so that community can see that. Or they can always just tune in and hear the beautiful oral report, but I think that documentation is really important, right? Because there's been a lot of great work done, and so just wanted to add that, and I see Lainey nodding her head like she agrees too, so.
We could offer definitely brief descriptions.
Yeah,
and
just highlight
outcomes.
like what came out from those meetings, because there's great work being done, and I want to make sure that we document those items, so. And it's great to hear that we're on a pathway. I mean, I know we're moving at the speed of trust. Maybe this is the first time where Lainey and I may not agree, where she's like, Ma, you have to give it time. And I'm like, you know, I want to hold ourselves accountable to the resolution, 2026, we're already here, right? But I understand that we need the SCORE work plan in order for us to get to the racial equity plan. I'm hoping that that item comes back together so that we can tighten that up, because there is a sense of, I'm not gonna say urgency, but I'm gonna say sustained commitment. There is a sense of sustained commitment from me as the chair of racial equity, to make sure that like we're holding ourselves accountable to that work. And I know that both of you and the Alliance and city staff has been in deep consultation, but I'm holding myself accountable to that as the chair, because I'm getting questions from the community, and I want to make sure that we are ready to respond. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mayor Pro Tem Guerra.
Well, maybe I watched too much Law and Order, asked and answered, you know? So, no, the concern, I think the point about seeing if we could go in parallel was the question I was going to ask. And then in terms of the community meetings and and the collective work we do, I guess sometimes here's the kind of the common strategy that I see. We meet internally, we do a lot of this work, we go back out to the community, we do that work, then we go back to internally, and we go back out again. And each one of those, there's almost like a 3-week delay, 4-week delay. And so when you add those, that's how we get to this point. Now, sometimes it's important to do that so that you can help guide and make sure you do, the important work. But, so I wonder, if, or maybe a recommendation, as we move forward, maybe ask the question, is this something where we don't have to have that back and forth? And since we've been working a lot, I mean, I think the trio committee and the Alliance have done a lot on this already. So just to avoid that and be conscious of that, because sometimes we do that. I know just, staff-wise, sometimes you don't want to go out unless you have the answers ready, because then it could create confusion and ambiguity. I understand that. So, but I think we've gotten to that point to say that I'm excited we're getting to the action phase. So if we could just take that into consideration, that would be my.
Saying less community input?
No, more community input, but less of the siloing, the less back and forth, So that's because I'm guilty of it too in my office. I'm like, we have this meeting, and then we go to the community, and then we come back, and it's back and forth. And sometimes it's like, can't we just all meet at once?
And I think, I hear what you're saying, Councilmember Guerra, I'm with you on that. I think part of it for the Alliance continues to be capacity. I know capacity is always an issue.
It is, yes.
We need bodies in the room to be able to produce this work so we can deal with some of these inefficiencies of time and scheduling that you're referring to. And I think as we continue to build out that capability inside of our Alliance, inside of ODE, inside of the rest of the city, we'll start to see some of those kind of delays heal themselves.
Yes, well, that's a great way of describing. And I was just leaning over to Lady about that. I was like, operationally, how do we move forward? So I appreciate that. Well, I don't know if there's a motion needed, because this is kind of a report back, but I just wanted to just say thanks for everyone. Where we started and where we are moving into action, it's exciting. Obviously, to that point, we had set some timelines, and I think trying to figure out how can we adjust to those is important. So just to say thank you for where we are today, and more to do.
Councilmember Jennings.
I just want to also thank you for the work that you've done. It's an incredible amount of work. There are many times that, for me, I'm sitting up here listening to all the work that you're doing, and I'm trying to follow it, and I'm trying to keep up with it, and I feel like I'm chasing to keep up with where you are. And so I listened today to a lot of what was said, March 3rd dates, February dates, all those kind of things. If there's some way that we can have a work plan that is obvious for the public to see with these dates in it, and it may exist and I just don't know it, but if there's some way that we can have that so that the public can follow along with us as we're trying to make these dates that we have committed to, even if we need to change them, we change them, but they at least know where the timeline is so they can follow along with us. And so does that exist already?
I don't know if that necessarily exists already. I imagine that for the Racial Equity Alliance, over the next couple of weeks, as we are approaching February 24th, we'll begin doing our outreach and engagement. As you are aware, the Racial Equity Alliance has several city and community partner organizations who we work with and who we will be outreaching to in order to get access to the community leaders who we need to be at that meeting. And I imagine that in the process of that outreach and engagement, we'll send out a list with these timelines on it, so our community members will be aware of how we are moving and what the expectation will be in terms of process and the work. That's what I can tell you right now as one individual.
Sorry, Coach, is it okay?
You wanna
if
cut in?
Is it possible, Ami, that even this can be posted up on the website? Because I know that we have a site with, the work that we're doing around this.
Yeah, absolutely. You mean the score work that's on the ODE page? Yeah,
Saying, hey,
absolutely. We could do that.
like a section on REA, and here's the work that they're, these are
Yeah.
some of the dates that are coming
Yeah.
up.
The website for the Racial Equity Alliance exists
Yeah, we
there,
can do
the
that. Is there.
resolution.
Yeah.
And what I would add to also build upon Nia's answer to you, Councilmember Jennings, is that's what I'm hoping the work plan is for, is exactly that. Is that we're putting in our strategies, we're putting in, dates, we're putting in key meetings, schedule of the trio meetings, that work plan, once we get to that finalized, that becomes kind of that public document and reporting document, that where we can start to not react, but we can start to forecast.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that's what I felt when you asked that question.
It's exactly what I-
We want to start forecasting. That to me is one of the unintended consequences of the work plan.
Right.
Is that we start looking at quarters, we start looking at years. We don't look at what's 2 weeks from now, right? Or deciding something. It's like, okay, and we're doing that in consultation with the partnership that makes up this equitable table, this co-governance model. So that meeting, and we can also include them in the staff report as well. So I definitely heard that recommendation as well, a little bit more precision, a little bit more narrative around the staff report. So then you would see that as well, being a council member, and then that would also be for the public's consumption as well, the key dates, and actions and activities, needs, and other resources and documents. So I could see the website, I could see the score, I could see the staff report, and in addition to the work plan, once it's finalized, as well as becoming that central place for that information to flow. Because that is what we want to do. We want to start forecasting. So when we are reaching out to care holders, we're all actually saying the same, providing the same information and in the same manner, and then tweaking it for their own unique needs as needed.
And it allows us to move at the speed of trust. And that's what we've been talking about.
So those meetings that I mentioned in my visual slide there about what is that looking like, that I think that's huge, because
That's part of the question.
That's like the question that the Racial Equity Alliance and OD is wrestling with, and I think we're going to need our other city leadership partners. It would be great to make sure that we have council representation and city manager representation, and because that's the partnership. And so while we're moving, I have, just, we were talking about how city leadership is organized, I have a reporting line that I am to ensure that I consult with before I bring anything publicly. And that's very real, and I think that's real for any city staff person. So how do we build that in to make sure that leadership is aware, that their input is given in that process, but in a way that doesn't burn people out?
Yeah,
that,
and
you
that's
know?
what I was going to come back to again and say, Councilmember Jennings, unfortunately, I have a similar answer that I gave Councilmember Guerra. As we continue to kind of struggle with the capacity, right? I know that Ami mentioned burnout. Burnout is very real for our Alliance members who are constantly kind of chasing this work. And so as we continue to kind of build both our physical and financial capacity inside of the Alliance to be able to output, engage, and produce these types of documents that will have this update information that individuals need, I think we will continue to kind of see improvement there. I think right now, we are struggling with those two questions at the same time, which sometimes prevents me, and maybe perhaps others feel this way, from receiving and getting to that success that we want to see more quickly, so.
So I heard February 3rd, 5th plan meeting, February 24th, meet with community leaders, March 3rd, next meeting. That's what I heard. And so now, I guess I have to ask you the last question is, do you feel you have the capacity to be able to make all those meetings happen? So that we don't move?
We are planning, and we're moving with it right now.
Right, I'm just saying, I want to know, do we have the capacity to make all that happen?
The February 24th meeting, absolutely. But going back to that March 3rd meeting, we might need to reschedule that out. We might not be able to have the work plan completed by then.
But we will definitely have an update
Absolutely.
as to how the February 24th met, and we
March-
might have to plant the seeds for the next racial equity committee, because you all are probably going to need to look at that work plan as well.
Yes.
Right, and deliberate and discuss, and it might need to be at the next racial equity committee. Just, again, that forecasting. But I believe the capacity is there as well.
We have the
and-
capacity for that February 24th
Because we've also
meeting,
built,
absolutely.
with those conversations in the fall, I think were really helpful.
Yeah, the March 3rd Racial Equity Committee is absolutely happening. If the work plan is not done based on the feedback from the leaders, that's okay. Bring it back anyways, because I do think that we need to have an in-depth conversation about how it went, and provide any additional.
And the resolution piece.
And the resolution as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Bring the resolution back with the draft work plan, because I want to make sure we hold ourselves accountable to that, so. Thank you, Councilmember Jennings. I see Gara.
Already went.
Oh, you already went? Okay, great. Any other comments? Okay, I think this is it. Looks like there is still a lot of work ahead, and looking forward to the March 3rd. I would also recommend to my colleagues that we do have trio meetings. In those meetings is my staff, city staff, Laney, and also the Alliance. So I would encourage my colleagues, I would encourage my colleagues, if they have the capacity in their office, to send a staff from their office to be part of that space as well, to kind of hear what's happening, how they can support. So just wanted to make that ask to my colleagues as well. That way you can, your staff will have a deeper kind of understanding what's happening with the trio space. Because I know Susan and Lex have been in that space. Mayor staff, I want to acknowledge mayor staff, Sherelle, that's here today too, representing the mayor's office. They've been in that space. But I think the more staff from our offices are, engaged, it also really helps with the direction as well. So just wanted to make that ask to my colleagues. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
On the agenda is a vice chair. Do you have anyone in the queue? Okay, I'll go with Councilmember Jennings and then Councilmember Guerra.
So I have been the vice chair for the last year, correct?
Yes.
And I have really enjoyed this opportunity of being your vice chair and working with you. I love your passion in the work and what you're doing, and I'm not saying that's going to stop. So, but I do want to always look to my colleagues to see who else may want to be in the leadership position. And so with that, I'm going to throw out a name or two, and I'm just going to, I'm going to test
You can nominate him
to
again.
see where they are. Let me say I'll throw out a name for now, okay? But I want to throw out the name of Pro Tem Eric Guerra to be the vice chair, if he is willing to look at his schedule and seeing if this is work he can fit in.
Well, Chair, thank you very much, Vice Chair. Well, I punched up to nominate our Vice Mayor to be the Vice Chair, and let me just say, I enjoy this work, and I'll be here. I'll continue to be here. It's been great to be involved from before it was a committee and when we started moving this concept. So thank you for that recognition. But I do believe in building also leadership and being engaged in this. And so I think our Vice Mayor, I want to nominate our Vice Mayor here to be the Vice Chair of the committee here.
Thank you. I was going to nominate Steve. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'll gladly accept, and I'll be the vice chair for Chair Bang.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor Talamantes. And I do, in addition to, because we're going to vote on this, is I do, encourage Vice Chair and my colleagues if they can also send their staff to the TRIO meetings. And I say that because as we're implementing this work, it is taking a lot from the city manager's office, ODE, and my office. And I think the more hands we have, it makes the work incredibly more light because it is a heavy lift that we're all lifting. And so really excited about that. And so hopefully, you can send someone to the TRIO meetings. But with that, we have a motion on the table to have Vice Mayor Talamantes be vice chair. Do I have a second?
You have a second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, that item passes. Congratulations. All right, I see Councilmember Guerra.
Oh, no, that was it, yeah.
Okay. Oh, and then, any public comments? Thank you.
Do we need to officially have was that for you to remain chair, or does there have to be a
No,
vote
it's
for
appointed
chair?
by the council.
Oh, chair's
Yeah.
appointed by the council? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. For item 3, can I have Lambert please come up for public comments?
Good, you stay.
We do have public comments.
Yeah, that's a good choice with Vice Chair Talamantes, because she's the Vice Chair of City Hall. So that's going to be good if she sticks with what she has presented to the public. Now, I was just listening to the exchanges here. And first of all, I can see where President Donald Trump has affected this agenda. This is the first time Chairman Vang, I believe that there's no comments not on the agenda. See, right there is a double standard. It should be that way. In the November meeting that I attended, and I looked at it today, it is there. So that should always be there. If somebody comes here from the public at 11 o'clock in the morning, you should have the respect to at least let them speak after all of this, whatever you just did. Because a lot of people don't come here. I'll bet you as I look in this audience, most of these people are on the payroll. And if they're not, they're on somebody's payroll. Some people can't come here. And the only reason I come is I'm getting it on the record, because I'm on a mission as a native to find out what's going on here. An example is, to the Bay and Back cheesecakes during the holidays, the millennials, this is what's called action after you meet. There's too many meetings, too many retreats. Once you have a meeting, you have to implement it. The millennials took us not only viral, but they took us global. And I didn't even understand global until they showed it to me a couple of weeks ago. And that's what's called action. And you will best believe that my family would run me out of town if I had a structural deficit.
Thank you for your comments. We have no further public speakers.
Thank you so much. Do we have any comments from my colleagues? No comments? Okay, I just wanted to close it up really quick. Before I adjourn this meeting, I just wanted to take a moment because it's the new year. This is the Racial Equity Committee. And I know yesterday, all of us celebrated, all of us in the city and the nation celebrated the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. And as we were reflecting about his vision and reaffirming our commitment yesterday and today and hopefully 365 days a year, I just wanted to take this moment just to hold space for residents in our community that is feeling the heaviness of what is happening across our country. And just let everyone know that, especially in these moments, that Dr. King's teaching was not just bound by history, but it was actually made for this moment. And that now more than ever, especially we're seeing the federal administration unleashing ICE on cities. I also know that we're doing everything we can to hold the line and protect our residents. And I just wanted to share this because as we are all governing, working together with our residents, I really do want to just uplift Dr. King's teaching, because now more than ever. We really have to meet the moment. And I know that my colleagues feel the same as well. And just wanted to reaffirm that as the chair of the Racial Equity Committee, that we have some tough months ahead of us, tough three years especially, but that there is a commitment from this committee and from this mayor and council to do everything we can to love on and protect our residents. So just wanted to reaffirm that to folks who are listening. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.